Hi everyone, I'm Vana from TBR Trio, and in this episode of Tales in Focus, we are at Sweet Nothings Book Co. in Baltimore, Maryland. Today we're sitting down with Juliette Caruso, a fantasy romance author who is known for cozy adventures from arranged marriages to dragon riding cowboys. Before we dive in, please note that the books we'll be discussing contain mature adult themes. We always encourage our viewers to read the content warnings in the books before reading and or listening. Last but not least, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming author interviews. It is free and it is the best way to support TBR Trio. Now, please join me in welcoming Juliette.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here with us today.
Of course.
And I will say we are in a new setting today. As you can see, we are standing and we are loving this cute and cozy new bookstore that just opened up a couple weeks ago. So let's jump into some icebreakers to kind of loosen you up a little bit.
Sounds good.
If your writing space or office had a Yelp review, what would it say?
Why is there so much dog hair? Probably.
Is it from like one dog? Or
It's one dog, but she sheds like she's about 5 dogs.
what kind of dog breed?
So she's a mutt. We're not 100% sure. She kind of looks like if you took a golden retriever but made her all black and shrunk her down to about 50 pounds. And it doesn't matter if you vacuumed yesterday, there will be tumbleweeds of fluff. She just
Love it. She's just
constantly-
marking her territory. It's fine.
You know, it's
Love
her
it.
space.
It's her house. You're just
Yeah.
living in it.
Yeah.
Which of your characters would be absolutely terrible at karaoke?
I feel like a lot of them, I tend to write introverts just because it's like write what you know thing, I guess. But Eliana is the best friend of Rachiel in this book, who's the main character. And she has her own book that takes place afterwards. And she has trouble even speaking up sometimes when she needs to like raise her voice so people will hear her. So I feel like if she went to karaoke, she would just be...
It's okay. She doesn't have to sing karaoke. She can just
Yeah.
be there and support her friends.
She's a good audience.
Yeah, exactly. All right, last question here. If your writing habits were a type of food, what would it be?
I think it would be some kind of stew that took all day to make and where you knew you were making a stew, but you were kind of coming up with the ingredients as you went, just pulling stuff out of the fridge and being like, oh, that would be really good in there, and tossing it in.
I think I just learned everything about you just by that reference.
I eat stew, I write books.
That's it. Do you actually make stew?
Sure, yeah, I cook.
Oh, okay, very nice. All right, so let's jump into talking about you a little bit.
Okay.
Tell us about yourself and what made you want to become an author.
Ooh. Well, I have been writing my whole life. I think the first time I started trying to write fantasy novels, I was probably in middle school, if not a little bit younger. So it took me a while to realize, like, oh, hey, that is actually something I can do, and self-publishing exists, and I can, keep putting in the effort and just have fun with it. But yeah, it's always been a part of my life. I was a lawyer for a couple of years, and I just switched to a much lower stress state government job so that I could focus more on writing, and it's been wonderful.
Well, you learn that's what you love to do, so you want to make sure you dedicate enough time to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's my passion. So.
Yeah, I love that. So what kind of writer are you? Are you an outliner or kind of like the stew? You're figuring it out as you go?
No, it's like the stew thing.
Okay.
So actually I have another analogy. It's just going to be full of metaphors today.
Love it.
I have likened my process to if you're driving somewhere in the dark and you know what your destination is and you know a couple of spots along the way, but mostly you just have the headlights showing what's in front of you. So I know always a couple scenes in advance. And I have like the key plot moments. Sometimes there's a scene in the future that it's like lived in my head 20,000 times and I know it perfectly. But in between, tons of question marks. I discover a lot as I write.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's something a lot of authors have told us. Like they kind of just, it's two things. One, there's usually like a scene or a character saying like, you have to write my storyline.
Yeah.
This is how I want it. And the other one is like, you're just, you know what? Figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
Like, is the hair color brown, blonde? We'll figure it out when we get there.
I tried outlining more and I found that until I start writing, there are questions I just can't answer. I'll sit there staring at the page being like, I don't know. I have no idea. But once I've written a scene, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this could lead to that, which could lead to, it just starts answering its own questions once you get the momentum going.
I absolutely love the way your brain works.
Thank
I love it so much. So that kind of comes into, do you, like when you think of your characters, do you think of like their personality? Like how does that work compared to like the plot? Do you think of that first or the characters?
Each book has been a little bit different. Things really build on each other. And so a story for me will usually start with a particular like seed or spark that will grow, but what order things grow in it really just depends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very case by case.
That's fair. That's fair. And every story is different. So it's
Mm-hmm.
do you have like a writing structure? Like do you like say, okay, 9 a.m. every morning I'm gonna sit down and write or
Yeah, I try. So when I was working in law, I was writing every weekend and I was trying to write unless I had plans, which honestly I feel so bad for my friends and family. I'd be like, I can't make plans with you. I'm busy. I'm writing. I would try and write all weekend, every weekend. Now that I have a little bit more free time, I'm trying to wake up like 5 in the morning to write before work, which is brutal. But I find after work, I can't get as much done because
Yeah.
I'm just, end of the day.
Yeah.
Either watch TV or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I write in the mornings and then I try and do a little bit on the weekends. Ironically, usually later in the day because in the mornings I'm just
Exhausted.
yeah.
Well, I will say like waking up earlier before like you do like your day job is so helpful.
It is. Yeah, it's like pure creative energy. You're exhausted, but you haven't drained anything yet.
Yes. Yeah. And you're starting fresh. Do you ever like wake up and you're like, I need to write this down? Like,
Oh yeah. I've had times before where I got out of bed at 2 a.m. because I was like, I need to write this scene. Sorry.
to sacrifice sleep. That's very admirable.
It doesn't happen often, but every now and then it just needs to get written. So
yeah. Well, it's something like because you don't want to forget it and you want to make sure that it's on paper because then it helps you figure out like what happened before.
True.
So what is your favorite part about the writing process? Is it drafting, editing, publishing?
Definitely not publishing.
Fair.
It's painful. Honestly, I really like editing. I think because I tend to discover a lot of stuff as I write, I really do like writing itself, but it can be difficult and it can feel sometimes like pulling teeth when it's not coming and you're stuck on a point. When I edit, everything's down already. The story exists. I know the characters. I know what I want to do. I have clarity about it and it's going through and tweaking. It's like, to go back to the cooking metaphors, it's like adding salt that makes it come to life when you already had the other ingredients there. So I find editing really rewarding and less scary.
That's fair. And it's also like you said, like the story is already there. So you don't have to be like, oh my God, what does this person do again?
Yeah.
You can kind of just like work with what you have. Yeah, that's awesome. So you write fantasy romance, specifically cozy fantasy romances. Cozy-ish, yeah. Wait until we get into those specific books. But what drew you to writing specifically, like combining the romance and the fantasy aspect?
Yeah, so I have always been a fantasy person. Growing up, it was my obsession. The first book I ever finished was just a fantasy book. I was scared to put romance in it. Genuinely, I was like, oh, what are people going to think of me? I think I had 2 characters hold hands. It was sad. I was like nervous. And I had always read just fantasy books, but a lot of young adult fantasy or kind of romance stories are important in them. Or I would read books that didn't have romance, but I would latch on to the looks between the characters. And I think it was really just the cultural stigma. I read Twilight growing up and I loved it, but even then I thought of it as a fantasy book because romance books were like the clinch covers that you see at CVS. And then during the pandemic, I got really into fan fiction and I started writing fan fiction. And a lot of fan fiction is very romance heavy and often smut heavy. And I was like, okay, wait, I'm obsessed with this. I'm writing more than I've written in years. I'm having the time of my life. I feel like I've opened up this whole world of books that I had never even given a chance because I had just sort of been told like, those books aren't worth anything, which is so false. I don't mean to be perpetuating these stereotypes. It's just the stuff I had experienced. Yeah, it was like how I had been raised, not saying anything against like my family, but just culture, our society. And so once I realized how much I loved romance plots and that I could put those into fantasy books and that it was a whole thing, I was like, okay, that's home.
You're like, okay, I found a whole new world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's awesome. I feel like fantasy, like combining the two, is always opens new doors to like, because fantasy you can pretty much make anything up.
Okay,
right?
yeah. I have a whole soapbox about it because sometimes I see people will leave comments like, oh, the plot was more romance than it was fantasy, and it bugs me to no end because fantasy is a setting, and I think people really mean the plot was more romance than it was action or than it was politics or than it was war. But there are fantasy books, I'm gonna go off down a whole tangent, but like going back to the 70s, Patricia McKillip's Forgotten Beast of Eld, like that's a very quiet book. It's about a woman who's on a mountain with a bunch of animals and there's a romance. This guy shows up. I'm butchering it if anyone's watching this and they know the book, they're gonna be like, what are you talking about? But like there are lots of really important, influential fantasy novels written particularly by women over the past decades that get treated as serious fantasy. And yet when the plot is romance, all of a sudden it's a romance book plot instead of a fantasy book. It's like, yeah, it is a romance plot, but if the setting is fantasy, it's a romance book, and the romance is a fantasy plot because it's in a fantasy world.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I feel like it's similar to like what you said, like if there's no war, there's no like heavy fantasy world building and lore, people are like, no, this is just like romance. But it's a balance, right? And it's romance fantasy for a reason, because romance is a plot or subplot of the story. So I agree, but listen, romantasy is one of my favorites. So
100%.
just put something fantasy in it and I'll read it. Like it doesn't have to be heavy, it could be cozy. I will read it either way. So on the flip side of that, what based on your experience, what makes you think readers want to read romantasy books?
You know, I feel like the number of answers for that are probably almost as broad as the number of readers, just because some people are looking for an escape. Some people are just nerds like me. Some people, they like things that can be promised in a fantasy romance that maybe don't exist in the real world. Like, I don't personally write fated mates, but I think it's an awesome trope. And you can promise things about a relationship when you have something like that going on, that in the real world you might have beautiful, wonderful true love, nothing against that. But like if it's, it's fated and it's meant to be and they're going to be immortal and live, it's a whole different promise that fulfills a different wish that I don't know, I'm rambling, but
no, I understand what you're saying. I get it. And it is an escape. That fantasy aspect is an escape, and then that romance aspect is like, it's comforting for us because we're like, yes, I love it. I love the characters coming together. The fated mates, awesome trope.
I think everyone needs stories. I think stories are super important, and they can fulfill so many different needs, and the same book can fulfill different needs for different people. But it's like fantasy is something that has been, I think, part of how people tell stories for as far back as history goes. We don't think of it as fantasy because we're like, oh, that's what they really believed. Like, people were always telling myths and making up stories and coming up with, things they hadn't seen, but they like talking about it. And
that's
I think it's just like a human thing. It's something that humans do.
Yeah, because we love talking. We just like love making things up, and that's essentially what fantasy is.
Imagination.
So, exactly. That's what fantasy is. It's imagination. Which is, I feel like we all need a little bit here and there. But so you write cozy fantasy, cozy-ish, but most of the time fantasy books, they require some research, right? To do some world building and things like that. So do you do research for your books?
I do, yeah.
What kind of research do you do?
So I would say some of it is just passive research. You learn about something, it's interesting, it sparks an idea for a book. But a lot of the active research I do is kind of in the middle of the writing process. I write in Google Docs, so I'll like Control-T, open up a tab, Google something really fast, go back to the book. I really like making sure that my details feel specific enough for me that I can believe them and believe it would actually be something that would work in the world. Even though I'm making up the world, I still like feeling like it has like a solid floor to stand on. So been rolling with food today. I promise I write about things other than
theme
food.
Is food.
But if I have a character who's cooking something, I'll want to check really quickly, well, based on like the geography that I'm kind of basing, where this story takes place on, what type of plants are native to here? Are the characters upper class or lower class? Would they have access to trade routes from really far away? If so, what kind of things might they be bringing into their cooking? So I'll do sort of shorter spurts of research just to make sure that I have those details feeling authentic to me. I'm sure I still get things wrong, but I want to make sure that I feel like the world has texture to it.
Right. It's as believable as possible.
Yeah.
But still making it something that's like a work of fiction.
Right.
But,
absolutely.
So what parts of yourself, like your personality, your experiences, if any, are in these books?
Probably a lot that I haven't even noticed because I just take it for default, but I
autopilot.
Yeah, no, 100%. But I think there are things I lean towards, like having characters that are not all the time. She is not quiet or an introvert, but often characters who are quieter, more introverted, or really enjoying like smaller towns and rural lifestyles, which I've lived in cities or busy suburbs my whole life, but I just love nature. So I really like writing about nature, writing about characters who want to do the right thing and make the world a better place. So things like that. Not that I'm always a good person, but I feel like those parts of what I care about seep into the books.
That's awesome. And I get it. I'm also from a big city but I love like the suburbs, the small town.
Yeah.
I love it. So I 100% get what you're
Anytime I
saying.
travel, I have more fun in the small areas than in the
Yes.
big bustling ones.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
It's just like the people. It's too crowded and it's too fast paced, in
Yeah.
my opinion. So if someone was to read your books without knowing who you are, what is something maybe that they would learn about you through your books?
Probably the things I just said. It's hard to say though. It's like because I often write characters that are heavily influenced by who I am, but they have some very different viewpoints than the ones I hold. So people might come to assumptions about me that aren't true either, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, people always
Right.
will always make assumptions. But yeah, I think that I feel like the more of you that's in the book, they can really see like, hey, like this seems like the author's voice, and like they learn about you through your book, which is awesome.
They probably think she really likes trees and home cooked meals and walking in the woods.
Yes.
And she does not like loud rooms.
That's it. That's you in a nutshell. That's
there
it.
We go.
That's all you got to know about her, guys. That's it. Well, you've released your first book in 2022, right? So it hasn't been long. It's been about 3 years. Am I doing math correctly? Yes, 3 years. Math, it's fine.
Yeah.
Is there anything looking back on your journey? Is there anything you would do differently?
So much. I don't regret any of it because I'm somebody who learns by doing. So I wouldn't know the things I know now about writing and publishing and marketing if I hadn't made those mistakes. But yeah, pretty much all of it. You know, I've grown so much as a writer and as an author in the past few years. When I sat down, so the first book I published was Knight's Oath. I wasn't even sure I was going to be publishing it. I just started writing it for fun because I was writing again. And I wrote it without any question of what's marketable, what are people going to want. Literally no decision I made in the entire course of writing and publishing that book had any research about marketing behind it. And I don't regret it. I love that book, and I hope that other people do too. But yeah, I have a very different perspective now. Not that I would stop writing the stories I want to tell, obviously, but even just little things about how are you going to pitch it to people,
right?
You know?
Yeah, it is definitely a learning experience, and doing it all on your own is very admirable. But
thank you.
You do learn along the way. It's kind of like trial and error. You're doing great. I'm sure your books are getting so much love.
Thank you.
We're gonna dive into talking about these books, but before we do that, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because it does help us. It is the best way to support TBR Trio. Without further ado, let's jump into Knight's Bride, which is your most popular book. It's also you're gonna tell us a little bit about it, but you were speaking of Knight's Oath earlier, and this is part of that series. But before we dive into all that, I do want to know, your cover art is beautiful.
Yeah, isn't it?
Can you please tell us about how this came to life?
Okay, so I feel like I owe like a life debt to my cover artist, Jacqueline Briand. She is
shout out to you.
Unbelievably talented. And not only is she talented, but she's really good at figuring out what I want when I don't even know how to say what I want. So I'll give her this long document that's tons of text, and I'm like, these are the characters, and this is their arc, and this is, you know, some of the settings that the book takes place in, and I don't send her poses or anything. She sends back thumbnails with a couple of options, and they're all amazing and perfect and wonderful. And I pick one out, and she makes magic happen. So I could not have gotten luckier. I mean, I've gotten really lucky with all of my artists, but sometimes I feel like she can read my mind.
I was gonna say, it sounds like she really was like, I know exactly what she wants, and then
she's like,
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And did she do all of your covers?
No, she's just done the Anar ones.
Okay.
But she has done some character art for me for Minor Works of Meta, which is another one of my books.
Okay, I love that. So what made you want to title it Knight's Bride, Knight's Oath? And the series itself is called Knights of Enar.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I've learned that I feel like I would do differently now. It's like knights, 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 knights. And there's nothing wrong with that. They are about knights, but maybe not in the series and the title, right? It's like
it's something you can't forget.
Keyword space, yeah. But
you know, repetition, it helps
for
people.
Sure.
Yeah, it stays in your mind. Yeah.
No, that's true. So Knight's Oath, I just liked the title. I was playing with some other ones. I almost called it The Healer's Touch, and one of my beta readers was like, for one thing, I think there might be a book with that name. For another, sounds very like, ooh. Which, I mean, it is a spicy book, but everyone voted who was reading the book with me and decided they liked Knight's Oath best.
Yeah.
Knight's Bride was almost the Falcon and the Oak, which is, of the main two characters, they're medieval. They have, houses that have different sigils and heraldry, and hers is the Falcon and his is the Oak, and it also fits really well with their personalities. But even though Knight's Oath is book 2, I had released it first because I went back to write their story because I liked them so much as side characters, and
they spoke to you in your
yeah,
mind.
I was like, I need to know how these two got together. They are chaotic. And so I was kind of thinking like book 1, Falcon and the Oak, book 2, Knight's Oath. It's not that I couldn't do that, but it felt like the rhythm of the titles and the length was really different, and I ended up deciding to just make it, Knights blank for each book in the series.
Well, like I said, repetition, it helps memorize. So, but the Falcon and the Oak also was a nice name. It was a nice title. Okay. And I'm amazed of how authors create titles for their books. I will always be amazed.
Also not my favorite part of the process.
Really?
Yeah.
So okay, hold on. Backtrack a little bit. What is your favorite part of like creating the book? Is it like the cover art, like finding someone to work with, the title? I'm just out of curiosity.
Honestly, I count all of that under marketing and not fun.
Fair. Fair.
It's fun to look at art. It's fun to get the art. It's not fun trying to come up with a pitch and figure out who's available and all of that. I've gotten very lucky with it, but it's always a little bit stressful. For me, when it comes to the actual writing and creation of the book, outside of the editing, it's probably just those quiet mornings where bits of the story start clicking together and you're like staring at it, not sure, and then all of a sudden it's like dominoes, and suddenly you realize the whole chain of events that would just perfectly. That's so fun.
Well, we know that marketing is not. we'll just put it all under that umbrella. All right, back to this. Back to the book. So tell us, what is Knight's Bride and Knight's Oath about?
So both books are medieval fantasies. They take place in a medieval-ish inspired world, and they're romances. This one is an arranged marriage where Rachiel decides she doesn't feel comfortable with the guy who she's been told to marry. And so she spikes his wine, climbs out the window at the top of the tower, and runs away into a monster-infested forest.
Well, that's one way to say no.
Yeah, as any properly reared young noblewoman would do. But he is very chivalrous, and he swore an oath to protect her when they got married. So he follows her and says, I'm not going to force you to marry me, but I really don't want you to die in these woods. Please let me escort you somewhere safe, and you can, keep running away from me, but let's just like get somewhere safe for you to do that from. And then they get lost. Knight's Oath is a forbidden romance, so she's sent to court to find a husband. Her family is running out of money, and she has like a time limit before her dad sets up a marriage, and she falls for a man she can't have, the queen's nephew, who is a brooding knight who's bound by his own familial chains. So it's a lot of fun. And the series does have an overarching plot, but it's barely. There are just like seeds of it planted that would not yet be visible, but they are in there.
But you said Knight's Oath you wrote first.
I did.
So these two books, they could be read in any order, but they're interconnected.
Yeah, they're complete standalones. So the overarching plot is just like developments in the world, basically. You can read them in either order. The main characters, all 4 of them show up in both books. Just of these 2. The other books will have different characters, but yeah, they're interchangeably read.
So you can read this one first and then Knight's Oath, or vice versa. Yeah, okay. And so there's 2 books right now. So what do you hope that the series eventually becomes? Like, are you working on like maybe a 3rd or 4th? Do you know how many books are going to be in the series?
So the 3rd is almost done.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm finishing it this month. If not, it'll be done in early November. Do not have a publication date yet, but the draft is almost
That was
finished.
my follow-up question.
No answer for that one. As for how long it goes, honestly, it just depends. I tend to get distracted by shiny new ideas. I could see it turning into a really long series. There are a lot of knights in their country, so it's kind of like a, infinitely flexible. And even though I have plans for what will happen in their world, because each book is its own couple and their own story within that world, it's not like a series that's following the same characters where there's an arc that you're trying to wrap up. It's kind of just, if people keep reading them and I keep having fun writing them, I can keep going. We'll see what happens.
That's fair. It's just in the same world, so you're familiar with the world already. It's just, okay, let's focus on like which couple are we going to talk about next. Well, that's awesome. I feel like that gives you so much more flexibility too.
But I need that. I'm bad with plans. The moment I make them, my brain starts going,
Ew, structure? No, we don't want that. What were some themes in the book that you felt were super important for you to include while writing? Sorry.
Yeah, no, all good. This one a lot for me was about people with insecurities learning to accept themselves and to not close themselves off to the idea that someone could like them even with or because of those insecurities. So that was a big part of it for me. Um, Learning to give each other a chance. There is a trope in this book that makes a lot of people not want to read it. Probably it does have a lot of miscommunication, but they're young. They're like 18.
Mhm.
So I tried to write it as a realistic one of when you're just coming of age, and she hasn't been out in the world. She was locked up in a convent. When she gets out into the world, it's like, how do you communicate with a boy? Have you
Mhm.
seen boys? Like,
Have you spoken to one?
yeah, all of a sudden you're married to one. Let's just climb out the window instead. That seems much easier.
Let's just spike his drink. It's
Yeah,
fine, you know.
way less stressful.
That's so funny. She spikes his drink and she runs away. So your book is described as a cozy fantasy, but still adventurous, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of both. So tell us how you balance the two in both books.
Yeah, totally unintentional, honestly. This is the only book I set out to have be cozy. The other books I wrote thinking they were just normal books, like I'm just writing a fantasy romance. And every single book, so this is my fourth one, the first three, every time I published, all of a sudden I would get reviews come in saying, oh, it's so cozy. And Minor Works of Meta, which I don't have out right now, has like ethnic cleansing, and there's a scene where like 100 people are killed by one of the main characters, like burns to death. I thought it was really dark, and everyone's like, "This is such a cozy fantasy book." I'm like, what are y'all
You're like,
talking
but there's
about?
violence in it, you guys.
What? So I think what happened though is because I like writing smaller towns and really beautiful nature and characters cooking, and I like the quiet moments. I like when two people are sitting in silence and feeling the scene for the first, like those sorts of moments rather than the action adventure. The action adventure is in my books, but it feels like it's taking the back seat to these sort of like softer questions. And then I think also my characters, even if I start out trying to write them morally gray, it's always like, but do they want to be that? No, they want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So I think it just ends up feeling like it's written by a human marshmallow, no matter what my intentions were.
So is that you're described as a human marshmallow?
I've come to that conclusion.
Okay, all right. Juliette, the human marshmallow. Love
to my
it.
regret, can't help who we are.
But it does sound like you want to write something darker, morally gray. Is that because it seems like you always you're going that path and you're like, nope.
Well, I think the thing is I like that stuff, but I feel like I probably like think I'm going further in my head than it looks like to everyone else, just because it's like we all have our own median line.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, my darker ends up not being as dark as other books, which I read those books and I love them, and then I'm like, I'm gonna write one, and people are like, oh, it's so cute. Like, I tried.
Well, I mean, listen, we need cozy fantasies in our lives too. So, and this is especially now that it's fall, it's spooky season, cozy season. These are your perfect books.
To be clear, I love cozy books, and I don't mind that my books are cozy. It just wasn't intentional. It just happened.
But sometimes the things that are unintentional are the best things to ever happen.
I've definitely learned about myself. Yeah.
That's something. See, look at that. You already answered one of my questions for later. So we were talking a little bit earlier about like the world building process and the research that you did. So talk to us a little bit about what that process was like specifically for this series.
Yeah, so it's funny. I have done some world building here, but I wanted these to be very generic medieval fantasy. And it's not because I didn't want to lean into the fantasy. It's because one, I love medieval fantasy. It's my jam. I could read it, nothing else but that, and I would still be happy. Two, I wanted them to be kind of an easy entry point. I wanted the world to be fantasy, but not have a barrier to people being able to get into it and enjoy it. My main alpha reader, who was reading Night's Oath as I wrote it for the first time, a good friend of mine, isn't really a fantasy reader, and I wasn't writing it for her, but she was my audience at the time. I wasn't thinking I was going to publish to the world. So that was a big part of it. But the mythology sort of in the books, the folklore, the characters that they encounter in the forests that they're traveling through in this book in particular, and then they're sort of in the background for the other books, but they're very much a part of their world, are taken mostly from Germanic folklore and a little bit from Scandinavian. So my family, my mom was born Mom, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I think in Austria, maybe in Germany. I should know. And two of my brothers were born in Germany. I lived there for a year when I was a kid, so I'm not German, but the sort of like German folklore has a lot of interest for me, just as something that I kind of connect to as part of my childhood. So I wanted to put that in instead of doing the more typical, again, nothing against it, but like English style, fae folklore type that you often see in medieval fantasy. I wanted to sort of give a little spin and look elsewhere for the roots of the world.
That's awesome. And I love that you bring in different types of myths, mythology, and you were inspired by living in Germany. That's awesome. I love those little touches. Oh my gosh. Was there any challenges that you experienced bringing this world to life?
I'm sure there were, but I think it's like when you block something from your mind. Now I'm like, no, it was so easy.
It was so walk in the park. What a breeze.
I honestly feel like the bigger challenges I've had are figuring out the characters and plots, not the world for this one. The world was easy. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Nice. Well, it was the it's all in your mind, right? The fantasy. That's the part we were talking about earlier where you can make it up as you go and it'll make sense somehow.
Honestly, too, since I was a kid, I have spent probably an obscene number of hours of my life daydreaming stories in medieval fantasy countries. It's like a default. It's like the comfortable clothes you have in your closet you put on without even thinking. It's just like, yeah, medieval fantasy. Okay, here we go.
It's like second nature to you. Like, you know it as well as the back of your hand.
And there's still decisions to be made, like what noble houses are there, who's the monarch, but it is a little bit generic. And again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I have fun with it. But
it's awesome. And like I said, you write what you love. And you can tell that you really love it based on how you're talking about it.
Thank you.
And how detailed it is too, which is awesome. If readers can take away one thing from your book or from the series so far, what would you hope that they take away?
It's worth fighting for a better future.
Yes.
God, don't make me cry now. Oh my, I was not expecting that. I love that. That's so beautiful. Oh my gosh. Wow. You left me speechless with that book. I had no idea. But that is
been emotional.
It's been a very emotional. Yeah, I love that. No, but seriously, like that's a beautiful message, and I love that. We do, before we move into the second book here, we do have questions from our TBR Trio Discord, which if you're not part of it already, what are you doing? You should be there already.
That's right. Link in the description.
In the description, yes. This one is from M. She is our book club moderator, which also, if you're not part of that, what are you doing? It's all in the Discord, which you can find. Her question to you is, how did you decide the characters' names in Knight's Bride? They are so cute and unique.
Thank you. Okay, so Talon's name, I don't even know if this is going to sound weird. I'm just going to go for it. So I'd written Knight's Oath first, so that's when I had to name him. Actually, Rachiel too. They're both in it. They're big characters in it. And the plot of Knight's Oath was inspired by a story I had been daydreaming about since I was a teenager. It was like one of those books where I'm just like, every time I'm stressed out, I'm just going to tell myself this lovely story. And so I knew that the main male character had a really close friend. And I wasn't really sure what he was named. And I kind of felt the shape of the sound was like Talon, but I knew it wasn't Talon. I didn't want to name someone like Birdclaw Man. But I knew it was something that sounded like that. And so I just played with it and ended up landing on Talon as something that in this world his parents could have named him that sounded to me like a name he could have, but still had that Talon kind of sound.
It's the pronunciation of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then Rachiel, I wanted her to have a name that was kind of understandable, so to speak, but still felt like it was a fantasy name. It's like a trick that a lot of fantasy writers use. You take a very like standard name and you just change the letters a little bit, and then you get something fun in fantasy.
Yeah, you add like what is it, the asterisk?
Yeah,
or like a
little apostrophe.
Yeah. It just makes it a whole new name.
Like we'll take Rachel and we'll stick an I in there, and
but it does sound very unique, and I feel like it is very appropriate for the time that you're where the book takes place. Awesome. Well, thank you, M, and don't forget, join our Discord and join the book club. All right, let's move on to the Dragon Ranch of Dawn Ridge. This is your most recent book, and you guys, I'm so excited to talk about this book. I'm so excited. But before we get into all that, because like I said, the title, I love to know about it. I love to know the artist, because you said it's a different artist.
It is. Yeah.
So please tell us the outside before we get into the inside.
The artist is Katrin Russell, who is just lovely and another artist, I don't know how I keep on getting so lucky. Super easy to work with. Needed very little direction from me. I said, here are, some covers. I was saying, this is a cozy fantasy, but it's also a cowboy romance. And there have been Western fantasies, far from the first author to have done that, but it's not like a popular genre, and how are we going to communicate that it's both? So I did some research and I looked at cowboy romance covers that I thought could be kind of on track with what I was looking for, and cozy fantasy covers, and tried to find like what are some of the parallels. And then she took off. She hand illustrated it and she did the font. I mean, she didn't draw the font, but she picked out all of this stuff. And I don't even remember. I think the only comments I had were like, can you move the hat slightly? Like, she just nailed it on the first go.
It is a beautiful cover, and I love that it looks like still medieval, still in that theme, but there's hints of like cowboy and Western. Like, look at the little hat on top of the the dragon. Come on, that's awesome. Okay, the moment of truth, you guys. Please walk us through what this book is about. I am so excited.
So it's a cowboy romance, but it's set in a cozy fantasy world where the cowboys ride dragons and they herd fire-breathing cows.
That's right.
The plot is basically the main character is a woman. She's a chef who is coming from a big city, searching for someone. I won't get into the details because spoilers, and it's not that important. She is left for dead in the mountains by some outlaws, and our main character, who is a dragon-riding, fire-breathing, cow-herding cowboy, finds her. She refuses to reveal what's going on in her life to him because she has someone she's trying to protect. So he's like, well, you're going to come home to our family ranch and heal up there because I'm not letting you just wander back out into the road with no money, no possessions, clothes that were given to you at the healers.
What a dragon riding cowboy gentleman.
He really is, yeah.
Look at that.
And he lives with his grandma. So it's, it's just a very wholesome, but spicy, but wholesome little story.
I am obsessed with this. Like, dragon riding cowboy, fire breathing cows, and then a professional chef. Tell me not. This is the best book I have ever heard.
He cooks for her once, and it's the worst meal she has ever had in her entire life.
And she's probably like, no, let me show you how it's done, right?
Yeah, she's like, how about I cook if I'm staying here because I don't want to eat the stuff you make.
He's like, I'll stick to my dragon riding and herding cows. Please tell me, what was your thought process to do this? Like, I need to know the inspiration. I need to know your mind.
Oh gosh.
When this idea came to be.
Well, okay, so I'll be honest. I think a lot of the books are written out of spite sometimes.
Okay.
It's like a thing. I was having cowboy fever because I was listening to some Western music and I was watching some Western shows, and I read a couple of cowboy books. I won't name them, but they're not big popular ones anyway. They were just, things I found on Kindle. And they didn't really hit the mark for me. They didn't scratch the itch I was looking to have scratched. I was just like, well, I guess.
Anymore.
Yeah. And so I don't even know what came over me. This is the fastest book I've ever written. Editing it took a few months because the draft was a mess. I wrote this in 18 days.
You wrote this book in 18 days?
Well, I was working as a lawyer at a big firm. I just was like, cowboys, this is now life. Nothing else exists. Every free moment, it was like a weird obsession-induced haze. I don't even know.
It's like
what had happened.
You're like, what had happened was
I read the cowboy book. I wanted different cowboys, and I like fantasy, and
I'm amazed. I am truly speechless because I am amazed. But I need to know, how does the idea of like dragons and cowboys and your professional chef, how does it all come together? Like,
I have no idea.
Okay.
I wish I knew.
Good
I wish
answer.
I could write every book in 18 days, but sometimes life just happens.
You had alpha team and a beta team for this book. I need to know, what did the alpha readers think of this book?
It's my good friend. She's been the first person who's read every book I've written, apart from ones that haven't been published under this pen name because I didn't know her then. She loved it. But I mentioned her earlier when I was writing Knight's Oath. She wasn't really a fantasy person, and she read a lot of cowboy books. And when I told her, I don't know if I'm really going to do it, doesn't really seem like what I've been doing, but I kind of want to write a cowboy story, she was, do it, please. And, maybe didn't turn out quite the way she was expecting, but she had a really good time. And she was, as I was writing it over those 18 days, she had access to my Google Doc and she was reading every chapter as I wrote it. So
I'm
it
sure
was
she
fun.
had such a great time.
Yeah, I'm very thankful. It helps with the motivation when someone's like, and what happened next? And then what happened?
Well, I mean, you wrote it in 18 days, so I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
she
it wasn't a long wait. But she's like the book a day kind of person. So,
Yeah.
for her, 18 days to read a book. Whew.
That's probably very brutal for I would have appreciated the 18 days.
Yeah, it's better than the multi-months that it normally is.
Have you gotten any kind of feedback from like just readers, fans, followers on Instagram or social media? Have you gotten like a crazy I need to know what people think about this book.
Even though it's my newest book, it has taken off in ways that others haven't.
Good.
Gosh, I can't do math in my head, but this one came out in 2023, and this one, the readership is probably like a quarter or a fifth of what this book has, and this one came out July 30th. So that's kind of baffling for me. The reviews have been mixed. Some people really, really love it. I think, though, there are a lot of people who come to it for fantasy books because dragons.
Of course.
And it's very cozy. It's very domestic. It's very slice of life. I mean, there is a plot, but it's mostly like, and now we're going to hang up the laundry and talk about stuff. And now we're going to cook dinner and talk about stuff. And I enjoy that because it feels like real life. And there's still, things happening in movement and romantic tension, but it's a little bit different than my other books in that sense. So I think some people are like, wait, but no one's attacking them right now. And that's valid to want those books too. But
that's at the point.
So like a marketing thing. I got to figure out how to be like, read this book if you want to slow down and feel like you're getting a warm hug.
Yeah.
If you're really stressed out right now, this is a good book. If you're like, I need some action and some like spice in my life.
Yeah.
This is like a slow it down book.
I feel like this is the perfect book. Like I said, for Knight's Bride too. It's cozy. It's perfect for fall, like especially this time of year.
This one's set in fall too. So it's like nights are getting cold, sitting around the fire. It's very much a fall cozy.
Okay, so everyone add this to your TBR immediately for fall.
You're scared of the world. This one will make you feel better, maybe.
Add it to your TBR. That's all I'm gonna say. That's awesome. I love the idea of the book. I love the concept of it. It's phenomenal. Just go read it. That's all I'm gonna say. Just go read it.
Thank you.
All right, let's pull out a little bit and kind of reflect a little bit on your journey and your future. So, is there any other books that you're currently working on or you're looking to work on outside of?
Yes, I have too many working projects. Yeah.
You wouldn't be the first person to tell me that, so that's fair.
I think it's a common issue. So, like I said, I'm almost done with book 3 in this. I'm working on a second book for this one. I have a chunk of it done.
This is going to be a series.
Probably. Yeah.
Sold.
He has a lot of brothers. He has a lot of brothers.
Cowboys.
And a dad.
Cowboys. And a dad. Ooh,
dad.
Okay. All right.
So we'll see what happens. I have a secret project I can't say much about that's coming out next summer. It's part of a group of other indie authors are working on something. So it will be revealed in time, but that one's fun. I'm having a good time working on it.
You should follow her so you stay up to date on that. I'm just saying.
Get the details. Thank you. And then I have a more like epic, high stakes, political, stabby, enemies to lovers style romantasy trilogy that I've been working on for a bit.
Ooh.
But I know me, and I know if I just do the first book, I'm gonna get distracted. And because it's a trilogy with like cliffhangers, I kind of want to write the whole thing so that maybe it's not, and 2 years later, here's what happened next kind of a situation. So that one, it'll probably be on the burner for a while before it's done. But I have like a good chunk written.
So we're good for the future, you guys. Once you guys are done reading these, she has a ton more down the pipeline.
More is coming.
Yes, I'm so excited for the trilogy.
Thank you.
I'm very excited about that.
It's actually based off of, so the first book I ever wrote, I finished in like 2016. Like I said, that was a mess. I had no idea what I was doing. I could write beautifully because I was a poetry major, but I didn't know like character arcs. What are those? Like
what?
Your characters need, they can't just be cardboard that the plot happens to, huh? So, but it's like coming from that world that was the first world I ever really settled into, but turning it into a romance and making it a trilogy and the characters actually matter.
Well, I am so excited. What has writing taught you about yourself, both as a person and as a storyteller?
Goodness. I feel like I have grown and changed so much over the last few years that it's hard to know what I owe to writing and what I owe to like life experiences, you know? But I will say I think the process of learning how to finish a book and then finish another book and then finish another book kind of has taught me how much you can achieve if you keep working at something instead of just giving up when it gets hard. So I'm a lot more careful now with how I spend my time and have better boundaries, in part because I've realized when I do that and I put my focus where I want my focus to be, my life looks very different. It's not anything against the stuff I was doing before. It sounds like I'm like hiding some dark past, but no, it's just like if I want this to happen and I spend my time on it, I will finish a book.
Yeah.
If I want to write a book but I spend my time doing other stuff, I won't finish the book. So learned some like time management, I guess. I don't know.
That's something good to learn, right? Do you have any advice that you would give yourself if you can go back and visit 2023 or 2016 Juliette? What advice would you tell her?
I feel like a lot of it was useful. The mistakes I made were useful to learn, so I don't think I would want to deter myself too much. But I'd probably say like do think about marketing right up front. It does matter. People aren't going to find your books if you don't market them, you know. Weird to say, but it's true. And also be really thoughtful about what you spend your money on, because it's good to try things and see what works, but there are some things where it's not really getting you any benefit. Like when I wrote Knight's Oath, they're like, you know, Kirkus reviews and indie reader reviews, and there are sites like that where you pay hundreds of dollars to get a review and everyone says it's not going to sell your books. And I was like, yeah, but I still want to do it. Why? You know, I could have bought cute character art with that money. So just be intentional.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And you know, you were young, so it's like we said, trial and error.
Yeah.
You know a lot more. You know a lot more now than you did back then, so that's great. And you can take it forward as you write your next books.
Yeah,
that you guys should be following her for. All right, last question here for you. If you can give one piece of advice to aspiring authors, or even authors just starting out on their journey, what advice would you give them?
Definitely write what you love, even to the point of if you're bored by what you're writing, does it really need to be in the book, and is it going to be fun for someone else to read? I have learned that when I find a story I'm excited to tell instead of a story I think I should tell, it is infinitely easier to write. And I think it's way too easy to get in your head about what a good book is versus what a bad book is, and to become too self-critical, to cut things out because you think, oh, that's going to be cheesy. Well, is it fun though? You know, cheesiness is okay.
Yeah.
If you like cheesy, be cheesy. You know?
There's someone out there that will love it.
100%.
Yeah, there's something for everybody. So, and I'm sure people would love to read what they come up with. So
Yeah.
that's wonderful advice. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, Juliette, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for giving us a lot of insight and telling us about your books, especially that one. For people and our viewers to go and support you, where can they find you? Where they can go to support your books?
Yes. So I spend most of my online time on Instagram. I do also have a TikTok, but I mostly just post and run away. But juliette.caruso.author on Instagram is the best place if you want to actually connect with me. I do have a Baventi if you want to buy signed copies. You're welcome to. Also happy if people get them on Amazon. The Knight's books are in KU and audiobooks on Audible. KU, no audiobook yet.
There's audiobooks for this?
For these ones there are, yeah.
Yes!
And then Minor Works of Meta is available wide, so it's not in KU, but you can get it on other retailers if you are like, on Amazon.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Love it.
I'm on the internet. Come find me.
She is
Say
on
hi.
the internet. She writes cozy, crazy adventures, which is awesome. And to everyone watching, thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Tales in Focus. You can follow us, TBR Trio, on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. And and Facebook too. We're on Facebook at tbr.trio. We are on everything. Like I said, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It is free. It does help us. We really, really appreciate you guys for doing that and for being part of our journey. And that's it. We'll see you next time to find out what other tales TBR tells.
Woo!
Bye.
Thanks so much for having me. Yes! This is a lot of fun. Yeah.
So